beautiful cards that you make deserve to have matching envelopes when they go out in the mail. If you love to have matching envelopes, then stick around. Today I'm going to share with you 6 or 7 different ways to stamp an envelope. Not too long ago I shared some really basic ways to decorate an envelope. Today we're going to look at a few that maybe you haven't thought about or maybe you just haven't tried yet. So let's get started. For each of these examples, I'll bring in a card sample that I made recently during one of my tutorials, and I will stamp an envelope to go along with it to match. So this is a lovely pheasant card. I had a lot of fun making this with some chalk pastels. Like I said, I did make a tutorial for it. If you're interested in any of the tutorials I am mentioning, any of the cards I'm showing, you can click in the video description below. There will be links there to take a look at any or all of them. So what I'm doing on this very first one for this card, I am just creating a border. So you could create a border for your envelope along any side. It could be along the side, 2 sides, top, bottom, totally up to you. But I thought this would be a really nice way to coordinate with this grassy look down along the bottom of the card. So that is idea number 1. For the second one, I'm bringing in this lovely fun fold card. I really had fun making this. Made this with the Ringed with Nature stamp set. I'll bring in a couple of the stamps here to stamp on this envelope. And for this one, I'm going to stamp a frame. So when you stamp a frame, you can stamp all the way around. You can stamp most of the way around. You could stamp opposite corners. I'll give you one example here, but of course the options are endless for what you can do on your own projects. So what I want to do first is, can you see these wood slices here that are embossed? Those are possibly my favorite part of this card, and there's a stamp that coordinates with that. So I thought it would be really fun to add this tree slice stamp to the bottom corner down here, and I wanted that ink to be nice and light. That's why I stamped off on my card, on my scrap paper before I started, and now I'm just going to add some stamps that look just like what is here on my card. The little leaves and the berries. So I am going to stamp down here along the bottom. I'll stamp up the side some. But I decided what I wanted to do for this frame was not really to go all the way around, but just to do opposite corners. So you noticed I folded the flap in. You'll have to pay attention to which way your flap is folded when you're doing some of the stamping. And you may notice here a couple of times I haven't stamped quite perfectly. Because your envelope isn't perfectly level, you do want to pay a little bit more attention to making sure you stamp level and firmly, since there are some folds back there where your envelope all comes together. Now let's add a few berries. I was really shocked actually when I created this card how pretty it was just with these berries and the leaves. So we'll have this with that wood slice in the background, and here you can see how I framed this envelope to match this pretty fun fold card. Okay, for my third one, we're going to create a frame, but we're going to do it in a little bit different way. And this is something I just thought of doing, so this may be a new idea to you. Here is a lovely card. I really had fun making this. This was an idea I came up with here lately. You can see the designer paper on both sides. It's a little bit different opening to the card, which makes it fun. Here's what I want to do for this envelope. I have a Post-it note and a large circle punch. I want to punch this so that some of that sticky, my sticky's up here at the top, some of that sticky is still attached to the circle. Now I forgot that when I punch through thin paper, sometimes it doesn't punch quite right. So let's try that again. I'll put my Post-it note on top of a piece of cardstock and grab this punch and punch through both layers. Really all I want is the Post-it note, but this is the way I can do this and get that to punch nicely. So for this one, I am going to put this on the front. We're using it as a mask, which we will remove here in a few minutes. But what I want to do is stamp in a frame around the outside of that and then be able to remove that so that I have space to write the address on there. So I'm going to be stamping some leaves that coordinate with the leaves on this card right here. And I will mix up my colors a little bit so that they coordinate. So this is Granny Apple Green. And then I'll bring in some Mossy Meadow as well. I can stamp over top. I can make this as thick as I want. I can layer it. But once I remove that mask, you will get to see the effect that we've created. And we have this opening for the address right there. Okay, so that's kind of a fun idea. Let's take a look at another one. And for the next one, we will use this apple card as our card we want to create an envelope for. I will lay my envelope right here. For this one, I just want to stamp the entire back side of the envelope. So we'll take a look at some other ideas in a minute. You may be thinking ahead to what I'm getting to here in a minute, but for this one, I am just going to stamp this all the way across the back. I debated what color to use. I didn't really think I wanted to use red, so I am going with a light pink that I thought would look nice and coordinate with the flowers I used over here. And I do like the way it looks when I overlap some of the images on the edge of that flap so that part of it's on the flap and part of it's down below. Okay, if I want to, I can go back and add a few of the bottoms up here just to fill in space, make them look like they are stamped evenly. So here you can see this envelope. So it's kind of fun when the pretty part of the envelope is on the back because they may not notice when it arrives in the mail. But then when they go to open it, it's, oh, there's a fun surprise, and just creates a little bit more anticipation, more than is probably already there because they know they got a handmade card in the mail, which is always exciting. For the next one, I absolutely love this black and white fall card I made here recently. It's a little bit of a fun fold, and like I said, you can get all these tutorials, get the links in the video description below. For this one, I am going to stamp that back flap. Now, this is one where you have to do a little bit of thinking about how you stamp here to make sure that you don't also stamp down here at the bottom. And there are a couple of ways to do this. One way to do this is to slide some paper in here between those layers. You may want another piece of scrap paper in the back because you'll be stamping off the edge. You can do it that way, but the way I typically do it, I'll show you that, is this. I love this leaf stamp, and I thought it looked nice with that leaf paper in the background. So what I'm doing is stamping across the top edge here, and then I'm going to open the flap up and finish the rest of it and fill in that space. So here is what this will look like with this card, okay? Next, let's do another one. I have a couple more left here. For this one, I have a card I created with the Fond of Autumn stamp set. Now, maybe hard to tell just from looking at this. I actually created this background. I stamped the image with this particular stamp, and I did it in a very light color, and then I went back in and I basically hand painted it with my water painters. So it was a really fun technique you can check out if you're interested. But what I want to do is take the same stamp and stamp the entire front of the envelope in a very subtle color. So I'll bring back in my Sahara Sand ink. If I am remembering correctly, I believe this is the color of ink I used to do this project in the first place. So I want this to be really light on my card front. So what I am doing is I stamped off once on my scrap paper. Now I am going to come back in and stamp on the actual envelope. Okay, so I'll do this several times until I get it covered. Now, if you're using a small stamp, kind of like what I did with the apples, or you could use a stamp even smaller than that, you may just have to stamp a few more times to get it all covered. But you can definitely do that. So here I have most of that envelope covered. And if you use a real light color like this will lighten up a little bit as it dries even. But if you use a real light color like this, then you can write your address over the top and not have to worry about it not being seen. Or if you want to, you can grab a blank mailing label and actually write your address on top of that. Okay, one more. And this one is pretty unique. I don't see this nearly as often as any of the other ideas I have shared today. And let's get to it. So this is a set of cards I made not too long ago, really simple cards with a stamp set called Eclectic Garden that I think is really fun. So the card I'm going to use for this envelope is this one right here. I almost called those grapes, and now I'm thinking like, I'm not really sure. Is it olives? Olives? Grapes? I'm not sure. I'm a plant person. I feel like I should know this. So I'm sure some of you out there know. Tell me what plant this is that I'm not identifying. So here's the idea for this one is actually to stamp the inside of the back of the envelope. Now, you could have some of these overlap and come onto this outside of the envelope if you want to, but I want to show you how you can do this and actually keep that all inside and make it look like it's actually going down inside that envelope. You may notice the block I'm using right here is much thinner than most of the blocks I use. I love these Stampin' Up! Blocks. If you're interested in them, I can link you to a video about them, all about them. But I love these. These are not my favorite, these thin ones, but these come with our, if you're a Paper Pumpkin subscriber, you get one in your first kit. They also come with our Kids Collection kits. I love the Kids Collection kits. I think I'm stuttering or blurring my words. So I really like them, but typically I choose to use my other blocks since I have them. But let me show you what you can do for this purpose. This is perfect because it's nice and thin and I can slide it in there and stamp. Now, you're supposed to not get ink on your fingers, but it's happened to you before too, right? I would imagine it has happened to all true stampers. Now, it's very possible when I stamp this one right here, I will cover that up and you won't even notice. There you go. You can't even tell. So I do want to show you, I debated what color of ink to use for this. I thought about using a light color of ink, but I decided to go ahead and use this color of ink so that I could show you this. So looks nice with the card. It's fun when they open it up. It coordinates. But if you flip it over, can you see? You can actually see that pattern a little bit through the envelope. So this is a really fun effect as well. Now, if you like this, if you think this will work with whatever your project is, you can use a dark color of ink like I did. If you prefer that it doesn't come through, or if you think it doesn't look nice, depending on the color you have, you can stamp that in a lighter color or do the stamping off like I showed. You can ink your stamp, stamp off on your scrap paper once or twice, and then stamp on the inside, and it shouldn't bleed through like this. So I hope this gives you some fun ideas for how to stamp your envelopes for your cards. If you're interested in any of the products I mentioned or the tutorials, take a look down the video description below. I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.